I haven't played a rhythm game in 3 years since Hi-Fi Rush. It's not that I don't like them, if anything, they are just hard to come by nowadays. After all, I loved Hi-Fi Rush. Unbeatable drew me in with its anime art style and comic book looking dialogue displays. It was only after I started tracking it that I realised it was a rhythm game. Not only that, but it has an original soundtrack which is bold for an indie title in this genre. Is this combination a winning formula, or is it a game that I would not recommend? What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you want to support the channel, then please leave a like and subscribe, or if you don't like it, then leave a thumbs down and let me know how I can be better for you. I have currently played 20 hours of Unbeatable, reviewed on Xbox Series X. Unbeatable is split into two main modes, which are Story and Arcade. The Arcade mode is solely the rhythm gameplay where you choose a particular track and difficulty and you can submit your scores to online leaderboards. The way you play this title's rhythm mechanics is different to what I've personally seen before. You have two tracks that run parallel across the screen. One is above the character's body and one is below. It only uses two buttons, which on an Xbox controller were the two bumpers. The left made you hit down and the right made you hit up. Don't be mistaken into thinking that this two-button simplicity makes the game easy, because it doesn't. Unbeatable's gameplay runs so much deeper than this. There are single notes which just require a tap either above or below to execute, long notes which require you to hold, big notes which require a bit of a button mash to beat up, notes that linger for a bit and have more notes feeding into them to complete. There are even notes that get hit from the top row to bottom row and vice versa. Further than this, there aren't just notes to hit, but also obstacles to dodge which require opposite button inputs, which can really confuse things. Effectively, the obstacles act as something you want to avoid, so if it is running along the bottom track you want to jump over it, or if it is running along the top track you want to drop back down to the ground. Oh yeah, and everything can travel from right to left or left to right and will constantly switch direction throughout a song. Trust me, it can get really complex in the higher difficulties. There are a bunch of tracks to choose from in the arcade mode. I'm not entirely sure how many, but at least 40. As I said at the top, it is an original soundtrack and various tracks have remixed or acoustic versions too. Progressing through the story unlocks more, so you should do this as a priority to fully enjoy the arcade mode. There are 5 difficulty levels to choose, ranging from beginner to unbeatable, and there are even additional accessibility sliders you can activate, which include things like God mode, where you can't fail a song, which is great if you want to practice those tricky sections. Each song then has its own difficulty level, which indicates how tough it will be at the difficulty setting you have chosen. For example, an easier track on unbeatable difficulty may have a level 15 rating, whereas a more difficult track could have a higher level, say level 16, on a lower difficulty setting like expert. This is a good pH test for when you want to dip your toe into trying the higher difficulty settings, as you can see which tracks will be more forgiving. The arcade mode was great and where I spent most of my time with Unbeatable. There are many bugs in this game, many of which I will talk about when I start to break down the story mode, but they didn't seem to be present in the arcade mode, which makes me sing its praises more. Because the arcade is so addictive and the gameplay feels great, I will keep diving into Unbeatable throughout the year for an hour here or there to see if I can climb up those leaderboards. I am not so glowing, however, when it comes to the story. Firstly, the gameplay in this mode differs slightly to that of the arcade. There are still sections of the rhythm mechanics with the two tracks running parallel across the screen, particularly when the band is performing a song, but then there are also fight scenes where you battle people. You use the beat to defeat them by similarly tapping the notes, but these run vertically from top to bottom rather than left to right. It is effectively the same motion, but it comes with the combined pleasure of seeing the animations of the person getting their arse handed to them. This is where the story mode is good, and to be honest, the only time I thought it was good, at least in terms of gameplay. Throughout the story, you'll be running around various small locations. These locations are filled with a handful of mini-games, which are all rhythm-based in certain ways. These could be in the form of making cocktails, hitting a vending machine, jump rope, or a batting cage, to name a few. Unfortunately, outside of the batting cage, I didn't find any of these enjoyable to engage with. They just felt a bit too basic and uninspired. The rest of the gameplay is kinda boring. It really is just running and jumping to the next dialogue choice, narrative beat, or fight sequence. There was a point where you find yourself in a prison making this sound dampening device, which went on for far too long and it wasn't fun at all. This story mode is roughly 10 hours, but it felt like I was desperate to get to the rhythm sections without enjoying any of the gameplay in between it. I did enjoy the variation the fights gave the arcade style rhythm tracks though, so I will give the flowers there. The story mode doesn't exist just to provide different gameplay options, but it also tells a relatively cool narrative. You play as Beat, a pink-haired badass who isn't afraid to stick a finger up to the man. The world they live in is a world where music is outlawed, and so Beat, along with her newly found acquaintances Quaver, Treble and Clef, form a band who illegally tour around in an active movement to protest against this controlled society. This setup means that most of the fights you'll be engaging in are against cops, which I can't deny is pretty satisfying. The story follows the relationship of the band, the history of the main characters, the reasons as to why this world outlawed music, and it goes to some pretty far-fetched places at the end. While chapters 1 through 5 are a bit messy and struggle to make a narrative impact, Chapter 6 comes out of nowhere with the most emotional and heartfelt end to the story. It took a turn that I didn't expect, and it left me wondering why the rest of the story wasn't like this, because it was really powerful. I can't fully speak about this story without mentioning the bugs in the game. In fact, they are so numerous, I even had a hard lock on Xbox which stopped me from playing the final chapter at all. I had to experience it through watching a video on YouTube. At the time of writing, on the 16th of January, this has not been fixed. There are several visual bugs as well as audio bugs I experienced in addition to this. World assets would constantly flicker, certain scenes would be completely silent because the audio track wouldn't load in, and some speech bubbles would not match the dialogue being spoken. These didn't bother me too much, especially considering they are absent in the best part of the game, which is the arcade rhythm tracks, but it is definitely worth noting. The hard lock on the last story chapter, however, is something that should be seriously considered before buying this game on Xbox. I'm sure the developers will patch it soon, so keep an eye out for that if you are interested. Outside of the bugs, the visuals on large are pretty striking. The whole game is in the hand-drawn anime art style and the animations are really cool. Everyone has to have coloured hair and the outfits are blocks of bright colours. This makes it great to add contrast in areas where you're supposed to see the oppression as well as feel it, as they are bland and clinical. The characters themselves are 2D sprites, but the world around is 3D, and this offers a unique visual when they move across the space. Even though this free roaming gameplay really is just running and jumping with nothing more to it, the visuals do at least provide some authenticity, and it's a vibe I enjoyed. Where all of this comes together the most is with the arcade gameplay, where every note you hit has a striking animation as well as colours sparking off it in classic anime combat fashion. Beat almost becomes Super Saiyan, flying up and down across the screen in fluid punishing movements. It looks fantastic. It's not just the visuals that impress in these sections, but also the audio. As I mentioned earlier, this is an all-original soundtrack and it rocks. Created by developers D-Cell Sound Team, there are so many tracks featured and you can buy the album separately if you enjoy it. The soundscape is a mixture of punk with chilled indie alt-rock, and when they show up in the story, they hit. Every big story moment had a track that I would just be grooving along to with a face identical to that Patrick Bateman meme. Obviously, this being a rhythm game and being about music in its entirety, it would be a complete miss if it didn't have a solid soundtrack, but what makes it impressive is that this is original from such a small development team. They deserve massive praise for that. When you resonate with a song, it makes the rhythm gameplay so much better too, as you sync up your audio-visual experience, and that is what Unbeatable does so well. These aren't just great tracks, but amazing ones, and there are so many of this quality too. Bookend song, dial tone, and sleeping in are incredible. In other audio notes, the cast is voice acted for cutscenes and it is to a good quality. Unbeatable really is a game of two tales. The arcade mode is delightfully addictive and feels great to play. The animations are sleek and the difficulty levels can pose a challenge for all abilities. The game's original soundtrack is simply amazing, and that only enhances the arcade mode further. The story, on the other hand, is littered with boring interludes and minigames that drastically vary in quality. There are so many bugs that interfere with your experience, and as I said, I can't recommend this on Xbox currently due to the hard lock, but I understand this to be absent on other systems. For all the shortfalls the story has, it still does have sections of fun arcade gameplay, as well as a narrative that cuts deeper than at first blush. The final chapter is something I won't forget quickly, but I'm left wondering why the journey to get there was so lacking. This game has potential, and a follow-up arcade game would be something I would definitely keep my eye on from these developers. As a whole package though, Unbeatable gets a casual game score of 6.5 out of 10. 2025 was a great year for video games and I played a whole 39 titles to completion. I have a video ranking all of them as well as my official Game of the Year video up now, so check them out if you're interested. 2026 will be another great year already looking at the announcements, so if you like my content then please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe, or leave a thumbs down and I will try to be better next time. February is a packed month, so keep an eye out for loads more reviews and quick looks in the coming weeks, and for everything else casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.